All right, just a quick food for thought type thing. Um, so the world's religions. Uh, I think that it doesn't make a lot of sense that a lot of these religions came about just because someone said something and people believe them out of their hunger for some spiritual meaning. I think that there are forces behind religions that are more powerful than what we see at the front. And I think that that's I mean, people will go into Islam and say this is the truth, like people that aren't Arab or anything. They're white people will go into Islam and really get excited about it and really feel something through it. Or people will go into Christianity that didn't have a background in it, like in China or somewhere, and say and really feel something about it. Or like I got into Hinduism, I really felt something in it, and I think religions have something behind them. They have something spiritual, something above what we can explain, what we can just dream up on ourselves on our own. And I think that that's akin to a magical current. And this is talked about sort of in esoterics of like how from teacher to student there's a magical current that's passed, and I think that religion is kind of similar. It's an initiatory program, but I think they're just very weak, and the current is of these the currents are weak, and everyone gets like a diluted version of it. I would suppose that secret societies then feed a more concentrated version, but I think it's not so much like secret societies are hoarding it from the regular people. I think it's more like regular people were more inclined towards like witchcraft and dogmatic theology, and so a few enlightened people had to were attempting to keep it alive, kind of thing. I don't have a great view towards secret societies. I think that inherently being part of a secret society is like a little bit problematic, or being part of like I don't really have anything against the lodge system. I actually sort of disagree with uh, Crowley's criticism of the lodge a little bit. I do think that the teacher student thing is maybe a little better. Um, no, the advantage of a lodge is everyone's energy body is connected. And they do this through some means that possibly they do this through some unsavory means to make it even stronger. But even so, if you're practicing magic together, your energy bodies connect. And that can be pretty powerful. The problem is that sometimes there become rivalries. That was Crowley's his criticism. I suppose that is probably true, but still, it's not like there's no advantage. Now, with religions, you sort of have a giant lodge that's not very tight, and I think that's super problematic. I think organized religion, um, actually, my favorite one. I was going to Mormon church regularly for a while. They're kind of my favorite because they're sort of halfway in between being Freemasons and like having a pretty clear lodge system and a pretty clear, like, pretty magical initiation system, but they're also, I feel like it's almost the system's almost tricking you to do some of these things that will fortify your energy body, that'll send you to other planets after you die, things like that. It kind of seems like Joseph Smith took the things he liked out of Freemasonry and just sort of, and some of the things he liked in the Bible, and just, I think he thought he was doing the right thing, is what I'm trying to say. I think he wanted to, a friend told me this, there was an ex-Mormon that a lot of times in Christianity there becomes an overemphasis on the epistles, and I noticed this when I was back in Christianity in the Protestant church. I always thought it was strange, but at the same time, if we were all acting like Jesus, we would just burn down society, I suppose. I think at some point, okay, being doing radical behavior is one thing, but at some point, like, what happens when you're in a group? So I think that's difficult to consider. But yeah, I think talking about religions is sort of the in terms of secret societies is really important, because back in prehistory, it seems like they almost were cults. They almost were like lodges or secret societies. Like for example, sometimes I personally think it was widely practiced, but historians disagree that in the past most religion was like you would go to to a prostitute and you and the prostitute, she was a priestess, so someone who would have like a very blank personality and is just channeling information, just absorbing all of this energy and becoming sort of more than human. And then you, as part of the state, as part of the city state, would go and sleep with the whore or one of the either the high priestess or one of her like underling priestess or whatever, and then you would sort of absorb some of that of her advancement in that way. And I think that makes a lot of sense and is very efficient. It's also a little bit gross, I think, but I could see why they do it, right? But I think now we're to the point where like maybe there's some kind of need for humanity to find less brute force ways of becoming, you know. And yeah, I don't know if we're really doing it as a race. But I think that's a lot of what religion is. And I think now there is quite a malicious strain of keeping people dumb, but I think people kept themselves dumb at the same time. So it's kind of a hard thing to nail down. But yeah, I would say that religions, whether they intend to or not, are sort of carrying out some conflict between whatever energies they represent, sort of on the cosmic scale. Like I would say probably Christianity and Islam. um I think that might have something to do with Anunnaki that are sort of at odds. Maybe not. Maybe it's just like keep the humans fighting and um, they'll be distracted. I don't know exactly, but I do like when you go into different religions. There does feel to be a different energy, like it comes from someplace else, and I think it's also related to the planets a lot. Um, so especially like Saturn and the Moon. Um, I'm not going to say the different religions represent different planets exactly, but I think there's a planetary energies have something to do with it. So, but I think just food for thought. We started out as like these primitive religions, sometimes based almost completely on sex, to connect the energy bodies and let information sort of subconsciously seep into the initiates, as it were. And now we're to the point where like uh, people just know dogma and they just are fighting over some like fun facts practically. I mean, what good does that really do? How does that really change or benefit the world? It's just it's kind of meaningless conflict over something you can't be sure of anyways. So